Welcome to the latest episode of Celtics Rundown. I'm your host, Bobby Krivitsky, and back again, a GFOP because we have been attacking draft season like no other. He is Sam LaFrance from Hardwood, Houdini, and how about them Celtics? Sam, how you doing?
Good to see you, Bobby. I've missed you. We haven't seen each other in about a month now, and when we
I
were
know, it's
seeing each
crazy.
other, it was just really sad, and the Celtics were unfolding right before our eyes. So glad to be back on at least a little bit of a sweeter circumstance.
We haven't seen each other in person in quite some time, and I think the best way to remedy that is with pickup hoops. So we will have to make that happen over the summer. I'm sure there's also like some concerts and stuff we can discuss. And inside baseball, I have been talking, now it's been a while, but about the possibility if we can get Sam to Summer League once again. I think that would be electric.
It would be fun.
Sam's got some big plans, but we'll see if maybe he can make a
Moving
cameo at
parts.
some point in Vegas. Sam, why don't we start though with before we get to the purpose of today's live stream is going to be about prospects in the Celtics draft range, especially our favorites from that cluster, because there's not much separation between even, I don't know if you caught this, but Tim Connolly, president of the Timberwolves, said their organization doesn't see much of a gap between picks in that 17 to 31 range. So you can take a cynical approach to that. I view it as good news for the Celtics that someone you might be fiending about getting in the lower end of that spectrum, there's someone pretty close to that that should be available if the Celtics stand pat and pick at number 28. So we'll get there. That's going to be the meat of today's live stream. But first, when it comes to the NBA Finals, I thought Game 3 was compelling. I literally had a friend text me that he had to be up at 5 in the morning for work today and could not walk away from the game. So he was like, I'm just going to take the L, have some extra coffee, and kind of white knuckle my way through today because the game was that compelling.
It was really fun. Kind of had everything. Like it had the first half where you kind of thought the Thunder were just going to run away with it as they had in game 2. And then TJ McConnell came in and stole the ball 5 times the same way every single time, where he just stole the inbounds pass somehow. And Indiana storms back. They take control in the second half and finish it off with great poise. And now you're looking at, sadly, a PTSD situation for all of us here in Celtic land, where you saw the Grandy tweet yesterday where he's pointing out all the similarities in Indiana's season and the 2022 energy shifting Celtics season, where they started off really poorly, got hot in the second half, run to the finals, go up 2-1. And then what happened? Maybe the worst game ever. Game 4 felt like they were about to win the finals, clinch it almost like undoubtedly right there. Fail to finish the game, go scoreless for like 5 minutes straight, and Golden State steals the game, steal the series, and that's the end of it. Indiana should stop trying to be the Celtics right now, today. This should be the last time that they ever are compared to the 2022 Celtics. We're all rooting for them here. This is not me trying to jinx them, trying to put a hex on the Pacers. I've enjoyed them. They've brought me great joy this playoffs. The Knicks series, Celtics blog playbacks, the hate watches have been electric content. You can check out the highlights on the First of the Floor channel. But man, the Pacers would be a fantastic feel-good champion, and I hope that they come out in Game 4 and put the effective nail in the coffin, taking a 3-1 lead over the Thunder. But we're going to have to wait and see.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people, especially Celtics fans, who look at the prospect of OKC winning and go, well, it's a small market. It's a feel-good story. They've recovered from all this stuff, like when Durant left and everything, and this could have been a franchise that frankly became irrelevant after that, but here they are. That could have been a feel-good story if it ended there. No one wants to see a dynasty if it's not their team, and the Thunder have all the makings of we're just getting started, even if they lose. So I think that's the part in particular that whether you're a Celtics fan or you want to see parity, you want to see a cycle of champions rather than one team with a stranglehold like it used to be back in the day with like the Shaq and Kobe Lakers and whoever. That's not what people want. So the idea of the Thunder winning is good to a pretty large degree because they have been a David in the past, but they could very easily about to become a Goliath, and it could start right now. So if you're the Pacers, you have followed the Celtics 2022 playbook to a T. This is the time to ditch that script and write your own manual here. We'll see if they can do so. Game 3 was phenomenal. I mean, you mentioned McConnell, Mathurin also 27 points in 22 minutes. First reserve to have that kind of production since Jason Terry in 2011. McConnell's numbers, which was like, I think 10 points, 5 assists, 5 steals. No reserve has done that in the finals. So, I mean, those guys in particular, plus Obi Toppin, they absolutely changed the game last night.
Mathurin, big buckets. Just the whole time. He only missed 3 shots, 9 of 12 from the field. Like, that's my dream game. I love efficiency. It's like a 2K My Career game where you miss more than 3 shots and you get upset. He made a big one in the fourth quarter too, and he has, throughout the playoffs, been a tremendous free throw getter. He's done a good job of forcing the issue, getting himself to the line, and I think that was a nice calming force for the Pacers yesterday. And I mean, man, the role players play better at home. That's the old adage in the playoffs. Maybe you get a little bit of a repeat game. Even Obi Toppin had some resurrected moments in the fourth quarter, the big putback slam. I'll tell you what about Obi Toppin. For a guy that has like the best athleticism you've ever seen, he hates dunking the ball. Like that putback dunk was like the only time throughout the game he even tried. And he had a fast break opportunity with, I think, like Caruso in front of him. Like he had a full head of steam and passed out of it to a cutter. It was like Ben Simmons-esque. Got to figure it out, Obi.
He just, especially now, like if ever there were a time to go for it and say, okay, I only have so many jumps in my career, it's the finals and you don't know if you'll be back. Like go yam it on Alex Caruso. He seems much more comfortable going off 2 feet like that putback dunk in the fourth, but you're right. He seems reluctant at times to show off his athleticism, even though the man can go way above the rim to a floor that most people's elevator doesn't take them to. And so when I look at this Pacers team, I mean, last night really reinforced that, like, they just have so much speed and are so well built around Halliburton. Like, it's what makes Mathurin, for all his flaws and inconsistencies and his first round pick coming off the bench, such a good fit for that team and that playing style, though. McConnell, same type of deal where he's just got this relentless motor and is always pushing the pace and trying to make plays. And so that was really evident. But with all that said, and as impressive as they were the other night, it was not nearly the same effort from OKC as it was in game 2, where they felt like we have to win this game. And so unless the Pacers go up 3-1, I'm not coming off the stance that I think the Thunder win this series. Where are you at with it?
I would be surprised if Indiana wins game 4. I hate, like, listen, man, if I was a Pacers fan and people were like, yeah, they're all listening to us, but like the general consensus seems to be like OKC should still win this. Like they have proven all year that they are this dominant team. There's no reason to feel like they can't get back into the series. And I just think game 4 is such a swing game here where if you do go up 3-1, I'll feel much better about the Pacers winning it. I'm rooting for them. But OKC tying it at 2-2 makes it a brand new series with 2 games in Oklahoma City out of the 3. They have full control if they just come out and win on Friday. So it makes it very difficult to count them out at this point. The betting sports books all have them as favorites still. But Indiana's in as good of a spot as they've been in to win the championship, which is sad to say, being up 2-1. Nobody is favoring them still, but go win Friday. Go win Friday. Impress everybody. Caitlin Clark will be there again. Haven't lost with her there. They'll trot Terry Crews out there, sit him courtside again. I'm sure John Cooper Mellencamp was devastated yesterday when they were booing the refs and saying ref, you suck, because he was so mad when Pat McAfee was so mean to the Knicks fans.
I think that needs to be the halftime show, is squashing of the beef, Mellencamp and McAfee. Just get the fans all charged up during intermission, bring those two out to the floor, hash it out. The live stream for McAfee right there, great content. So, yeah, like the way that I look at it is 2-2 going back to OKC is much better for the Thunder than the Pacers. And I will say this, though. This is starting to look like it could go 7. And no one would be surprised if OKC just wins out, or at least you shouldn't, and this ends in 6. But, man, so like this is our last series. It's obviously the biggest one. If we can squeeze 7 games out of this series, which I certainly did not anticipate coming into it, that right there is a win.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, it's like free money. It's like hitting on your first hand of blackjack at the casino and you're up like $200 and you're like,
Come
well,
with and find
if I
out,
lose
Sam.
all
Come
my
to
money.
Vegas and find out.
Funny story is a couple of friends and I went to the casino in like December for a friend's birthday, and my car is a piece of garbage, doesn't start on the last day. So we get stuck there. My friend was up money, just loses everything while we're waiting for the tow truck to come.
That's just crushing right there. But you make your bed, you got to lie in it. Like he made his choice for how he wanted to spend the time waiting for the car to get fixed and ready to go.
It's true.
And like at the same time, scared money don't make money. He could have just as easily walked out of there a winner. So
yeah,
no
the
regrets.
Pacers could have
It is a
forfeited
pretty
the finals.
damn good way to kill that time.
They could have forfeited, left the season winners of the Eastern Conference, and called it a day. But no, they are playing with their house money now.
Exactly. So, your friend, he's going to have other swings at it. It's not going to be his last trip to the casino. I'm sure he bets on games. So that money, ultimately, it all comes out in the wash. And most people, when it's all tallied up, they don't make out ahead. So whatever, it was, again, a great way to spend that time. There are more boring ways to wait for a car to get fixed up. So shout out to him. He played the game, valiant effort. And when it comes to NBA, the trade rumor wheel, I was thinking about working the word roulette in there, but we're going to scrap that because it's corny. And so I have one for you that just came out today. And I'm curious to see if you agree with my cynical take on it. And that is Michael Scotto from Hoopsite put out that the Sixers are working pretty hard and engaged with the Spurs on trying to move up from 3 to 2. Now, that's easy to understand if you're Philadelphia. But why in the world would San Antonio do that, Sam? That's how I look at it.
I mean, maybe they'll get Paul George out of it. That'd be
Oh, wow.
good.
Sign me up.
Podcast
B?
I admittedly don't know anything about the top of this draft because I just haven't been we've been so in the weeds with the Celtics late first, early second round range that I haven't really gotten a chance to pay attention to the Dylan Harpers and Ace Baileys and VJ Edgecombs of the world. I would say if you're San Antonio, it would have to be a Tatum situation where you like a guy, like you're not going to pick Dylan Harper at 2 anyways, and you're just going to get free money for giving up that pick to Philadelphia and still getting the guy that you would want. But I don't know why you would do it. There are better offers to be had for your second overall pick. I mean, people are talking about Giannis as a potential trade piece for it. Not to say that Giannis is on the move because he came out and said he doesn't really want to, essentially. But even the Celtics being a player for Jaylen Brown, which probably isn't going to happen either, especially since he just had surgery. There are way better things to be had than the third overall pick, it feels like.
Yeah, I mean, like, what are they throwing in here? Jared McCain, and does that really do it? And do you want McCain and Castle? Like that? I like Jared McCain, of course, but that deal, like, I just don't see what Philly has that entices the Spurs. If I'm really trying to construct the argument, it revolves around because Giannis hasn't asked out to this point. Correct. And Durant doesn't cost the number 2 pick. And so it's, can San Antonio get Durant and then replace some of the draft capital that it parted with to make that happen by moving from 2 to 3, and you take a chance on presumably VJ Edgecombe. And so, like, that's a fine logic, but man, I do think that at least, like, when you're at this point in their careers, and it's much more about projecting. So like Edgecombe could be a home run. Ace Bailey could put it all together, but there's a reason that the consensus number 2 pick is Dylan Harper. And so if I'm the Spurs and we're keeping that selection, then I'm not trading it for the number 3 pick and the lack of what Philadelphia has to offer.
Put Embiid next to Wemby. Who says no? Great front court.
I mean, there's so many scenarios that give us Wembanyama next to another freak, and now he's got the Shaolin Monk practices to help maximize whatever pairing that is. But like, whether it's the Durantula, Embiid is not a real rumor, but we'll throw it in there right now and pretend for a second like
official
it is.
Report.
Yeah,
Spurs
like Giannis would be
Embiid.
Incredible next to him. I mean, go get Chet Holmgren at this point and really get wild.
Chet, by the way, turned into a pumpkin in the finals. He's in my spectrum of non-Celtic white guys that I just feel like I have to hate.
I mean, I remember after game 2, I think it was SGA was like, oh, we don't even have to say anything to Chet. We don't have to worry about him ever. And it's like, someone might want to say something because he's not giving you what you need to this point.
We'll have to see in game 4. It would be lovely if it could be like the trope of young guys aren't ready to win the championship yet. Like Shea is of age, but the rest of them are not. And so you really have to give it a couple years and take the licks and take the battle scars with you to get over the hump. But yeah, I don't know about Chet. Chet struggled. Had a cool game too. That's it.
He did. And he started off, he was out playing Miles Turner last night, but that faded. And
Miles Turner. Miles Turner had like the role player equivalent of the Tatum game 6 in Philly yesterday.
Well, he didn't turn it on at some point though. There was
he had like a stretch in the fourth quarter where he made a couple shots, had some blocks. Like he had decent winning plays, but he was awful for the rest of it.
Yeah, I wonder how serious whatever illness he's dealing with is. They made it a point to get that out after the game, which is almost like, we know how bad it was, Miles. We got you. We're going to tell the world that you're not feeling too hot right now.
Did he catch Porzingis-itis?
He might have Porzingis-itis, which it doesn't go away. So if that's what he has, it's a huge problem. You're going to need more Thomas Bryant and to dust off Tony Bradley. You're going to need Bradley healthy again if that's the case. Let's pivot here, Sam. Let's now get to the whole purpose of today's live stream, like I was saying at the top of the program, is to talk about the draft prospects. We've been diving into just a wide range of them. And so I start with a couple that they're unrealistic. Don't get your hopes up, Celtics fans. If it happens, that's great. You hit on 21 at the blackjack table when you weren't expecting to and had no business hitting.
You should have stayed.
Yeah, everyone at the table is kind of side-eyeing you like that worked out, but you shouldn't have done it and you could have screwed everyone else. That's what it would be. The top name for me on this list of unrealistic dream scenarios is Cedric Howard, who he could have gone back to Duke. He barely played last season, but he is just from the combine all the way through. He is so much helium to his name where people were talking end of the first round, even past the Celtics pick. And now I think there's too much unknown for a team at the end of the lottery to take him. But I think he's that kind of a talent, and I don't think he goes too much further than that.
Yeah, him only playing 6 games in the college season probably did a lot for his sleeperness heading into the combine. Now the cat's out of the bag. Everybody knows about him. He's flying up draft boards, and he feels like he's not going to be within Boston's range. They did have him in for a workout. He's on the official Hoops Hype and also Hardwood Houdini tracker of all of the prospects that have worked out with Boston, but it doesn't really feel like he's going to be there. With that being said, you do make a good point. Since they did have him in for a workout, maybe if they are in the business of trading up, he is somebody that they have fallen in love with. It would make a little bit of sense to have an extra wing/guard off the bench or a future prospect to play alongside the Jays. I wouldn't hate it. I don't think I would be mad. I would be interested to see how it pans out. He'd be a fun watch at Summer League and would probably have a lot of opportunity next season to get his feet wet, have room for error with the Celtics as they have this weird bridge year with Tatum out and Jalen coming off the knee surgery. Not that I think that's really going to affect him, but still, just lower expectations in Boston will be good for whoever they draft.
Yeah, Brown's supposed to be ready for training camp, by the way. And then when it comes to the idea, if they were to trade up, one, it could save them some money if you have one prospect to bring in instead of two. Secondly, it's just one less person that you're potentially competing with for playing time. So it could aid someone like Cedric Howard's development. Now, I don't think there's a realistic scenario where 28 and 32 get you that far up the draft board to get him specifically. But even just in general, it's an idea the Celtics are going to have to weigh out. And as part of doing their due diligence, you talk to the teams above you and you see if that's something they're open to. And then you can watch the draft unfold that night. June 25th is round 1. And you can see, hey, there's someone that we actually want to go ahead and instead of standing pat, we want to package these picks and move up. So we'll see what happens there. Another name that, Sam, I fell in love with so quickly, but I think he goes after Coward, but I don't think that he makes it to 28. And that is Nick Clifford. It's a super senior. So they went older last year with Shireman and Watson. It'd be the same path. But man, I mean, what he does defensively, he is so disruptive. And then in the Big Sky, he just looked unguardable at times. He's got a great feel as a playmaker. And you can say, oh, well, like that's Big Sky competition, whatever. He went to the NCAA tournament and showed out as well. So Nick Clifford to me is a really intriguing prospect. Again, we're talking unrealistic to start, but that would be another one where the Celtics get an A+.
He's also in the range where like you could fathom them putting the 2 picks together and getting there.
Definitely.
Tankathon has him 20th on the big board. He's mocked 17th to Minnesota, so that could make it a little bit more difficult to get him. But again, like giving yourselves another wing type player who can play next to Tatum and Brown and maybe be like not a third J, but just be someone you believe in going forward. I think this is going to be a really interesting crossroads for Boston to bring in like I would say like another timeline type of thing, depending on if they can hit with this, because Tatum and Brown aren't getting any younger. They're not old, but they're not getting young anymore. Like they're in their primes now. And I think trying to have a sustainable roster for the future is going to be important for Boston. So if you're able to bring in another wing to play alongside them, and I believe in Shireman too. I think he's going to show a lot of promise this upcoming year, but he's 24, 25 years old now too. It's not like he's 20. Drafting Nick Clifford could give you another interesting look.
Yeah, I think it's also a huge opportunity next season for Peyton Pritchard to take another step forward. Absolutely. After winning six-man, having the best season of his career. He is on the younger side of things. He's obviously not early 20s, but still a younger player. And next season is a great opportunity to develop a first-round pick, younger guys on the team, and that can help with the goal of trying to contend again once Tatum returns, and then ultimately long-term and beyond just 2 seasons from now. The last name that I have on this list of unrealistic, not that it's the only one here, but we'll cut it at this, that is Thomas Sorber from Georgetown, a prospect that you looked at, so you can do the scouting report. But I'll just say before I throw it to you, one of my favorite parts of watching him is that players will drive into him and literally bounce off him before he blocks their shot. So he's an enjoyable watch.
Yeah, Sorber. So there's actually like a little chance that he slips, not according to a lot of mock drafts, but he did have a foot injury to end his season at Georgetown this year, was done playing in February. They didn't specify what actually happened to his foot, so we don't actually know. But what I can tell you about him, he's a big body. He is a mostly below the rim player who has a decent touch at the basket, but has really good timing on shot blocking chances and is a good help defender, right? So he's the sort of player you can picture fitting into what the Celtics do, especially with a player like Luke Cornett being such a big part of their bench rotation, where he doesn't really need to have a jump shot to be effective. And if he can establish himself as a guy who has the feel for the game to be ready in the quick spots, in the dunker spot, the catch and finish opportunities, he could be a real asset for the Celtics, and he could also be somebody that the fans really gravitate towards because he does have a grit to him. He has that strength that just allows him to be a brick wall for guys to bounce off of. And he also does like the KG screaming at guys when he blocks their shots thing that everybody gets fired up about. So if he's there, he'd be like an awesome fit for Boston. He, I think, has shown some promise from the mid-range shooting a jump shot too. So you can kind of talk yourself into maybe he'll develop as a shooter, but that could be low on your list of things that he needs to do to be effective for Boston.
Yeah, if he falls, like I said at the beginning, that there's a cluster of prospects who there's just not much separation. If he ends up being the one that falls and you're able to get him, whether it's a trade up, which I think it would take, and I don't think they would do it for Sorber specifically, but if in any case he makes his way to Boston, some of the stuff you touched on there, the energy, the physicality, I think that it's really important. Whoever they bring in brings some of those things, and certainly fans would love it. You know, if you get someone who's doing the KG scream and blocking shots, they're going to sign up for that right away and be engaged and invested in a prospect like that, maybe more than just the general, we need to be invested in this player. So I'm definitely with you there. And now, Sam, when it comes to prospects that you think are realistically might be on the board if the Celtics stand pat at pick number 28. Who are your favorites among that group that just really stand out and you say, I love this prospect. I would love to see the Celtics come away with this player?
So first and foremost, I'm going to preface this with the same thing applies to Sorber, where if you're Boston and you draft a center, that guy has the opportunity to be an immediate impact player for you because Al Horford, Luke Cornett, and Kristaps Porzingis all have uncertain summers ahead of them. Porzingis might get traded. The other two are unrestricted free agents. We don't necessarily know if they're going to be back on the team next year. So it almost feels like center is a need. So Sorber could be a great filler for that. I'm going to start off with somebody who is not necessarily like a guaranteed hit. I think there are other guys who feel more guaranteed. I'm a big fan of Joan Beringer. He's French.
Oh, I like that. I didn't think that's who you were going to go. I like this.
Yeah, he played, I think, in Slovenia last year. And he only started playing basketball like 4 years ago, I guess, whatever, because he was growing too much and they no longer sold soccer cleats that fit him. He's French Robert Williams. Like, he's still pretty raw. Like, it's almost identical to how it was scouting Robert Williams when he was drafted, right? It was a guy with freak athleticism. He had room to grow as somebody with an IQ where Rob was very impatient as a rookie. He had to learn to stay down instead of leaving his feet all the time on pump fakes. I think there's going to be similar growing pains for Beringer, whether it's with Boston or somewhere else. But if you watch his tape, if you watch the highlights, you're like, man, he's got the Robert Williams pop. He blocks shots, he dunks. He's a super fun watch, and I think he would be an exciting guy to have on the team, especially considering, like, you're not really drafting for this year completely. It would be cool. It would be cool if somebody could come in right away and help you, but really, the goal is to have a roster that's ready to compete and also is cheap for when Tatum is healthy and ready to compete again.
Yeah, it's funny because traditionally the Celtics have not gone towards, or at least certainly in recent years, maybe traditionally it's too strong, but in recent years, they have not gravitated towards the raw, impressive, supreme athlete. But like you said, the situation is so different now than they expected it to be. You have time on your side. So maybe they do take a swing. It applies to another prospect that we're going to talk about shortly. But Beringer, he all of a sudden becomes a more realistic option that maybe the Celtics do take a crack at and see, can we get him in our system, which has such a good track record of developing players at the top of the roster. You look at Tatum and Brown's growth, but then Cornette, Hauser, Pritchard, all throughout the team. And so they might bank on the infrastructure and ultimately take a swing on someone like Beringer. So that's a really intriguing idea. The center that I thought you were going to bring up is Maxime Reynaud from Stanford. This is a guy that he put up a stat line that I'll pull it up here. It hadn't been done in major college athletics since Kevin Durant. And so right here, he first major conference player to average at least 20 points and 10 rebounds while making more than 50 threes in a season. Again, hadn't been done since Durant and Carmelo Anthony, Sam's favorite before that. So to me, when you get a player who he's so good around the basket with both hands, he can pop out, which makes him a great pick and pop threat. And not only what you really see more is his passing, which makes him a potential threat as an offensive hub around the elbows, but especially in a Luke Cornett type of role where on dribble handoffs, he becomes more dynamic and has to keep defenses have to stay honest. But also you see him make some plays as a passer off the bounce. And that's an intriguing part of his game, coupled with the fact that at his size, he's a 7-footer, former teammate of Victor Wembanyama's in France. He is a drop big, but he's so disruptive around the rim. He had like a 4.3% block rate, which is very high. So whether he's getting his hand on it or just altering shots, he's great on the glass at both ends of the floor. So Joe Mazzulla stresses all the time, winning on the margins. This is a guy that will generate extra possessions wherever he goes. So Reynaud, to me, I like that idea a lot, and I think it's realistic at 28.
Yeah, definitely is realistic. He's somebody who can help you fill in like the role player fit that I think you're always looking for if you're the Celtics, but just particularly with the range they have, where you feel like there's a pretty good chance he sticks, right? Like he can shoot the three pretty well. His free throw percentage is high enough to where you can convince yourself he's going to continue to develop as a shooter in the NBA. And having that ability to shoot the ball is always going to be big with the Celtics. Like Missoula loves the threes. He loves creating good threes. And if you have somebody like Renaud out there that can knock him down, people have like comped him to like a poor man's Porzingis. So that should tell you a little bit about like the fit, how he could possibly help the Celtics. And he's a decent rim protector with a good wingspan, 32-ish inch vertical, which isn't bad for a guy that's 7 feet tall either. I can see the hope. You just have to kind of live with him being a drop defender or hope that he gets a little bit quicker on his feet there to help you on the perimeter. But I would not be mad at all if they drafted him.
Yeah, you look at it right now. Porzingis is a drop big. Cornet is too. So I think he fits, and the Celtics know how to utilize that archetype effectively. All right, who's next on your list of prospects in this cluster that you're really a fan of and think could be on the board at 28?
Big Kalk, Ryan Kalkbrenner out of Creighton is the first guy I did a draft report on. Think he's somebody that really makes a lot of sense for the Celtics. He's continuously getting mock drafted here. Has not worked out for the Celtics yet. But he's a super senior at Creighton. He's a 4-time Big East Defensive Player of the Year winner. He has a game that fits into an NBA role really well. Catch and finish guy. Listen, at Creighton, they asked him to post up a lot more, but he's really good on the quick catch and layup, quick catch and dunk, decent on the lobs, runs the floor pretty well. He can shoot the three a little bit. Shot 34% from three this year. Could improve as a free throw shooter, though, so there's no guarantee he pans out as an NBA three-point shooter. But he almost feels like Luke Cornett. Like, that is the feel I get from watching him. He averaged almost 3 blocks a game this year for the Blue Jays in the Big East, and he consistently is an anchor for their defense. So if Boston is to pick him, I just think he's one of the guys that feels like his floor is very high. He's almost guaranteed going to be a rotation player for you down the line, with the risk that they lose Cornett again this summer. Really makes you feel like there's a chance for him to fit into Boston's scheme.
Yeah, I think center is the greatest position of need for the Celtics, and there's a chance that all three of the top options could be gone: Porzingis, Horford, and Cornett. And then you definitely, look, it can be the Celtics have traditionally not been a franchise that puts need over who they deem best available. But again, there's a reason that they went with super seniors last year, older, more experienced prospects in Shireman and Watson. So you do have to factor circumstance in and all of that. And Kalkbrenner, as a center with a high floor, shades of Luke Cornett to his game, he makes a lot of sense. I'm sure Shireman would love the selection. And the idea that they can get a lot out of a player with his profile, that's enticing right there. At 28, you certainly don't want to swing and miss. And so if they feel like ultimately, even with our circumstances, we want to err on the side of caution and go for someone like Kalkbrenner, that's a good pick and a justifiable reason behind it. So sign me up for that scenario. Certainly, I would consider that a positive outcome for the Celtics on draft night. I spoke last week here on this live stream with a former scout, Matt Babcock, who him and his team at Babcock Hoops, they do a phenomenal job. He has the Celtics selecting Rasheer Fleming with the 28th pick. And I mean, this is someone who he's a stretch big. He has a pterodactyl-like 7'5" wingspan. And the idea that you could get someone who could have the two-way impact at the 4 spot, like a Rasheer Fleming, he's another one that he might have played his way up the draft board. But if he does last all the way to 28, he brings shooting. He brings the ability to be a rim protector and really disruptive help defender. So Rasheer Fleming, to me, I think Celtics fans would be raving about that selection.
Yep, definitely a good stocks guy. Wingspan allows him to be a disruptive defender. I haven't gotten to watch a lot of tape on him. I've heard people talking about him quite a bit. I just keep seeing him projected like just slightly out of Boston's range, so I haven't quite brought myself to pay that much attention to him yet. But with that being said, working his way up the draft board says a lot about him as a player, his work ethic, what he can bring to the table. He projects to be a good three-point shooter in the NBA. Shot 39% in college on a decent clip. Like 4.5 attempts a game is not necessarily low volume. Like people do love to panic when it's like good shooting numbers, but only like 2 attempts a game. No, he's letting them fly. Decent presence on the glass, decent free throw shooter. I could see it where he fits in as a rotation big, or even, if Boston was to draft him this year, you could kind of talk yourself into him seeing extended minutes with Tatum not being there as the team's starting power forward. You could probably use a little bit more front court depth this season. So I wouldn't hate it. I think it would be a lot of fun. I want to look at some more footage, some more scouting reports on him, so I'll defer to you on that. But I've heard mostly good things about him.
Yeah, I think it would be a really strong selection. And then I'm curious to get your take. How would you react? You talked about Behringer as this raw athletic prospect. I think Drake Powell fits that mold as well. And he's also someone that they might be able to get at 32 early in the second round. If the Celtics select him, whichever one of those two picks it is, your reaction would be what?
I don't think, I think this draft is so deep that I'm not going to be furious about anybody that they draft, really. Unless I really, really hated the scouting report. I don't even know where he's mocked on this Tankathon board. I'm trying to find him.
I've seen him in so many different places, but it's usually his range starts at the end of the first round. So 28 is kind of the beginning of where you typically see his name pop up.
He is mocked to the Celtics on this. I'm just blind as a bat. Listen, I didn't think to look at. I think adding guard depth is a smart thing for Boston to do too. That and center depth feels like the top need. If they draft a wing that feels like a good fit, I'm not going to be upset about it. But addressing those two things is going to be important. It feels like Holiday is not going to be on the team next year. That's what all of the reporting is. He's the name that is most involved in trade rumors where there's actual other teams that are reported to be interested in him. It's not like the Celtics want to trade Porzingis, but no, we haven't heard anybody report Team X is interested in him, right? But Holiday, it does feel like there's real grounds for him to be moved. I like Pritchard, obviously. Think he'll be ready to step up into a starting role. Him and White in the backcourt is nice. Who's coming off the bench? Probably who they draft. That's the answer. So if you draft somebody like Drake Powell, he's got decent size, pretty good wingspan at 7 feet, can kind of talk yourself into him being an NBA-ready stocks guy. But it doesn't seem like he is heralded as a great defender, at least according to what I'm looking at right now. I haven't gotten to look a lot at Drake Powell yet.
Yeah, I'll say this, though. He does have the tools and the motor. He's a willing defender. So that's encouraging. And I look at the Celtics as a team that needs an infusion of athleticism. And if you're moving forward with Tatum, Brown, Derek White, and Peyton Pritchard, you don't have to do much lifting at the offensive end. So a raw prospect like Powell, and this again, it's a point in the direction of why the Celtics might stick with their points of emphasis. They have a system where they want players that are dynamic, and it really starts with offensively shooting. And then can you facilitate effectively? Can you make a play when you put the ball on the deck? I've said it a ton that those one-dimensional shooters have been phased out of basketball. And so the idea of if you believe in Powell as a shooter and your development infrastructure, he makes a lot of sense. And the idea of seeing someone like that running alongside Tatum and Brown and Pritchard and White in a couple of years, that's a vision that I can buy into, where he's the fifth wheel. Granted, the four names I mentioned are often going to be stagnated and not on the floor together beyond closing time and the start of the game. But you get the idea here. And again, he just, not much would be required. So as long as you believe in him as a shooter, that goes a long way towards we can trust Drake Powell.
Yeah, I think, even with the rumblings that maybe Hauser is on the outs, drafting shooting doesn't hurt. Kobe Bray is another guy I looked at for Hardwood Houdini, and we talked about him on the How About Them Celtics channel. Guy is the most elite shooting prospect a lot of people have seen in quite some time. He does it all, catch and shoot, off screens, does a good job of moving without the basketball, questionable finishing ability, but really Boston would just be asking him to be ready on the perimeter. And it was a role he took on with Kentucky last season. So, when I see guys in college playing an NBA-type role, I'm not a draft expert. It makes me feel better about their fit, especially with the Celtics, who are a team, not next season, but for the most part, have been a team that you have to be ready to just swallow your pride, be ready to stand in the corner, be ready when it's your moment, and you're not going to have a lot of shot creation opportunities. If Powell can do that, then he could be a great fit too. Absolutely, and his three-point percentage last year says enough.
Sam, I can go first if you want time to think about this, but is there a prospect that you look at some of these mock drafts and he's not really projected at 32, for example, he's further down the board, but you've looked at him and thought, I just really like this guy. And I don't know if it's per se great value if the Celtics select him, but is there someone like that who fits that description that you're a big fan of?
So Bray would be one. I think he's like 40-ish, like late 30s, early 40s projected. Now, I will tell you the name that I love the most as my top monitor just turns off. It's back.
Clap
the name
on.
I love the most as a sleeper, might not even have to draft him guy, is Clifford Omarui out of Alabama.
Ooh.
Big man.
And they brought him in for a workout.
They brought him in for a workout, which is how I know who he is. I looked at the tape. He played an NBA role for the Tide last year. No pun intended. He was just setting screens, rolling to the rim, dunking. All he did was dunk. Just a dunk master. He looks like Dwight Howard, Robert Williams. They throw him alley-oops. His defensive motor, I think, is a question mark, because I was just watching the tape and I was like, why is he not projected to be at least drafted? This guy's awesome. He's a little older. He was a super senior last year, but the way he was just willing to be a low usage guy for a good Alabama team last year makes me feel good about him being a project guy or I don't even know how to describe it, like take a flyer on him guy for the Celtics, especially considering the question marks around their center spot next year. So that is my answer. Big Clifford, big dog.
Yeah, and look, with 28 and 32, a scenario that's not getting discussed is what if they move back, get future draft capital, and then select a prospect that they still feel pretty good about later in the second round. And in that scenario, that's definitely someone, Big Cliff, who fits the mold. I think you should copyright Roll for the Tide, by the way. And if they draft him, I will be using that. I will cite you, but that's a good one right there. Yeah, I got you.
Just
You'll definitely get sometimes that's how the best slogans, mantras, monikers, whatever, how they ultimately get produced. So I will give the hat tip to Sam LaFrance if they draft him, and Roll for the Tide is being put onto digital paper. And then a player who much different profile, but fits this description. I honestly fell in love with Tyrese Proctor, and he gets talked about as a guy who's right around that 40th pick as well. But he is a dynamic shooter. He's not streaky. Like some people get billed as a shooter and they can run hot and cold. This guy, it's just one direction. He's on. He wakes up, he's in rhythm. And he is a phenomenal pick and roll playmaker and facilitator with a really high basketball IQ. He also has another elite trait in his toolbox, and that's his agility. He literally, in that, like the short shuttle drill, I think it was, he had one of the best scores in that at the combine. So you look at all of that, he's got a pretty good wingspan. It's like over 6'7" for a 6'4" guard to be able to compensate for not being the biggest of players on the floor. But at 6'4", it's not like he's undersized either or at some tremendous disadvantage. So all the concerns about Proctor, they stem from the fact that he's thin, but he will add muscle. Even Brandon Ingram has done that over time, and different level prospects, different builds in terms of height for sure. But Ingram's lack of muscle going against stronger players, I might add, than Proctor's often going to be matched up against, was never an issue, really holding him back to some noticeable degree or meaningful extent. And so Proctor, to me, he has such a high floor, some of the most coveted traits. He perfectly fits the bill for the Celtics, what they emphasize offensively. He's got an elite physical trait or athletic tool in that agility, and he can be pesky defensively thanks to that wingspan and his IQ. So Tyrese Proctor, to me, I look at the mocks and I almost can't help but wonder if internal evaluations are higher on him than the external ones.
Yeah, he has the mold of a guy who could be a bench role player for Boston. Absolutely. Especially with the 3-point percentage being what it is, over 40% last season. I always get caught up on why do they not like this guy? Parts of doing scouting reports. And as far as putting on muscle goes, just have him talk to Baylor Shireman, who came to media day last year looking like a thumb because he had put on 20 pounds over the summer. It's possible. It can be done.
Definitely. Like Derek White, he put on a lot of particular upper body muscle in his chest area, and it made a huge difference for him a couple of years ago in being able to become a more versatile defender. I talked to Peyton Pritchard about what he pointed to at the root of him taking such a huge leap defensively this year, where he's getting more opportunities against SGA and Luka Doncic and Cade Cunningham and all these different profiles of top perimeter players. And he said it started in the gym with just kind of changing my physique a little bit, adding muscle, getting leaner at the same time. So it's that lean mass. And I mean, you can see the difference that it makes, and it can be done, all different profiles. Proctor, he's got a lean frame for sure, but he also is like pretty big, not in terms of muscular, just in terms of like mass, I guess, surface area, pretty big shoulders in that regard, which bodes well for the idea that you look at him and think he can definitely add muscle and get bigger. And it might not be too much of a problem, especially coming off the bench to begin with to start his career. As this happens, you noted Shireman, it happened pretty quickly. Grant did a little bit older than Proctor, but Proctor, he was a junior just now in college in his final season at Duke. So that's a prospect where I'm almost like a remix of the, what's his name from The Simpsons? The principal there. It's not Mr. Burns. It's, help me out here.
I don't know. I don't know that much about The Simpsons. I'm letting you down.
Neither do I, but it's whoever
Parents
the principal
never let me
is.
watch it.
There's a meme, though, that's like pretty popular, and it's the principal. And he's like, am I wrong? No, it's the children who are out of touch.
Oh,
and
okay. There you go.
So for me, I'm that meme, but it's like, no, it's the mock drafts they're out of touch. Like, that's how much I ride for Tyrese Proctor. So I hope I'm not putting a hex on his career, because that's someone I really believe in. The last guy that we can talk about, Sam, and we can be quick here if you haven't had a chance to look at him, but talk about motor and Adu Thero. I mean, this guy is awesome. Like, there's a play, I put it out in a highlight reel with the profile I did for him, where he literally takes a horrible gamble, leaves his man at the rim to go try and make a steal, and the center turns around well before he can try and like knock it away from the blind side. And yet he recovers to his guy at the rim and swats his shot. So like, he is a freak athlete, and his motor is just this high revving nonstop machine. And when you pair those two things together, you get a really intriguing prospect.
Yeah. There's a certain individual that we both know that would completely disagree with you, despises Adu Thero, and actually never wants to see him even close to the Celtics. But what I will say about Adu Thero is he has the mold of the type of guy you would get excited about. And me being a sucker for guys who can't really shoot the ball and talking myself into them being able to learn how to shoot, I definitely like him as a potential Celtics prospect. I think his defensive motor and willingness to just be a nut on the court makes him someone you could think of coming off Boston's bench or even being a supporting cast member for the Jays when, you know, that plan is back into fruition. His freak athleticism, his ability to move, his speed, all of that give him the tools to be a good NBA player. It's just a question of whether or not he can learn how to shoot. And that is a big if. It's a big necessity. He almost feels exactly like Jordan Walsh, probably more athletic and built than Jordan is.
I think a lot more athletic than Jordan Walsh. And
I think that's fair.
More disciplined too. Like Jordan Walsh, especially at Arkansas, was frenetic. And I think that Adu Thero, I think there's just more of a calmness to how he plays while simultaneously talking about, like, as you said, he can be a defensive nut. I think he is more in control. Walsh is like up in your airspace and swatting at the ball and moving like crazy. I think Adu Thero is more in control, certainly like where they were at collegiately at Arkansas.
Also, if you watch Thero's tape, like there are highlights of him blocking shots that you can talk yourself into him being a small ball five with how he's able to quickly get up and get his hand to the ball, even on like floaters and stuff. Like he looks like a couple inches short of Rob Williams on some of these rejections. Like that's how quickly he just gets off the ground. I don't know if Boston would ever use him that way, but it could lead him to be an effective piece even without the shot being elite.
I'll also say this, that I think that you can work around the shot if you're talking about him just being this positive infusion of energy off the bench in that type of role, because he has the tools to be really effective as a cutter. If he can develop a feel for that, you can utilize him creatively as this dribble handoff threat. Like, there are different ways where you can weaponize his gravity if the shot doesn't really come around and teams are playing off him. And there's definitely some playmaking chops that he shows. So the shot is a total unknown. I can't really sell you on, well, when you look at this, it would be the reasons to buy stock in his shot developing like you can with some other prospects. But again, what he brings to the table, I think, lends itself to being a positive contributor at the next level.
I agree. I completely agree with you. I'm like lukewarm. Like, I don't think he sucks. I'm not like knock your socks off excited about him. If they drafted him, I would be thrilled to watch Summer League. We definitely would get highlights out of it. It's just a question of whether or not he can be effective with low usage at the NBA level without really being able to shoot the ball. But I think there are plenty of examples of guys who make a living off of cutting. And especially with the athleticism Duke Dero has, he could do that. And if he can just put a little bit of time and effort into a jump shot, he could be extremely effective.
Yeah, I look at him as someone who can come off the bench and impact the momentum of a game. And maybe his stat line and even his minutes aren't particularly impressive, but he's someone that's getting praised after the game and even getting written about for, look at his impact. He was a turning point of some point, even if it was in the first half and the second quarter, whatever the case may be. Sam, that is going to do it for this edition of Celtics Rundown and the live stream today. And of course, we end by giving you the floor to plug and promote, let everyone know where they can find you on social media and all the excellent work that you've been doing right now.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. I always enjoy talking to you. You guys, if you like me, you can follow me on Twitter at Sam LaFrance NBA. I'm working with Bobby at Hardwood Houdini, and Jack Simone and I are doing the How About Them Celtics podcast, something new on the channel every single day on YouTube, whether it is full pods Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday, or right now we're doing a lot of draft previews. So if you liked Bobby and I chatting, Jack and I do plenty of that about a different prospect, usually in the in-between days between pods. So come check that out too.
Yes, sir. Go support Sam. Follow him on social. Check out his excellent work. Stay locked in with How About Them Celtics. They do a phenomenal job. And right here, as far as the Celtics Rundown live stream goes, we are definitely going to continue with our draft deep dive. So like I said, we had former scout Matt Babcock on last week. We had Sam for today's deep dive, and we will continue on this front and further explorations next week. The plan is to go live on Wednesday at noon. So you can be sure to check us out here and over on all of 5 Reasons social media accounts, plus the YouTube page. I'm Bobby Krivitsky. He's Sam LaFrance. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Celtics Rundown.